Clint Eastwood leans back in his chair, that famous squint still sharp even at 95. His voice is a low rumble, the kind that rolls out slow like whiskey poured neat. The interviewer smirks, almost hesitant, and asks, "Clint, you been the tough guy, the outlaw, the cowboy, the cop, but off screen, which actresses really tempted you?" Clint lets the question hang, that signature pause of his stretching just long enough to make the room twitch. Then he chuckles, dry as desert gravel. "Well, at this age, what the hell do I got to lose? I've made a lot of movies, worked with a lot of beautiful women, and the truth is, some of them damn near broke my self-control. Others, I never got the chance, but I thought about it plenty. Let's just say there were 7 women who could have made me forget every line I ever memorized." He leans forward, resting those calloused hands on his knees, eyes narrowing like a man about to deal a winning hand. People think playing the gunslinger or the cop was tough, but standing 5 feet from some of these women, that was the real test of grit. You can rehearse stunts, you can fake a fist fight, but you can't fake the way your pulse jumps when the most beautiful woman in the world looks you dead in the eye. That's not acting, that's survival. He takes a slow sip of his drink, letting the pause linger just long enough to tease the answer. Then, with a sly smirk tugging under his mustache, he adds, "I was the tough guy on screen, sure. But off screen, sometimes the toughest thing I ever did was behave myself. And hell, I'll admit it, I didn't always succeed." One, Meryl Streep. Clint shifts in his chair, the memory pulling a rare softness into his gravelly tone. "Meryl Streep," he begins, shaking his head like he's replaying old reels only he can see. "Now that woman, she was dynamite, trouble wrapped in elegance. When we filmed The Bridges of Madison County, people said they could feel the heat between us through the screen. Truth is, the camera only caught half of it. The other half, that was what went on between takes, in the glances nobody wrote into the script." He chuckles low, the sound like boots crunching gravel. "I'd be standing there, playing the stoic photographer, and she'd look at me, just a flicker of those eyes, soft and cutting at the same time, and I'd lose my place. Doesn't happen to me often, but with Meryl, I forgot my damn lines more than once. She had this way of tilting her head, smiling like she already knew every secret you tried to keep hidden. That kind of thing could undo a man." His gaze sharpens like he's back in that Iowa farmhouse. "There's a moment where I lift her chin in that kitchen. People still ask me if that was acting. Let me tell you straight, it wasn't. That was me trying not to kiss her for real in front of 100 crew members. And if we hadn't been surrounded by lights and cameras, if it had just been me and her in that farmhouse kitchen, hell, I don't think we'd have finished the day's shoot." He leans in, lower in his voice, like he's sharing something dangerous. "She had this scent, too, something warm and faint. Not perfume exactly, but her. I remember standing close enough to catch it and thinking, if I breathe too deep, I'll end up writing my own obituary." He lets the thought hang, then exhales slowly. "Meryl wasn't just a co-star, she was a storm. Gentle 1 second, ferocious the next. She could make you feel like the only man in the world with just a touch, and then remind you in the next breath that you were out of your depth. She didn't just play Francesca, she lived her. And I'll admit, for those few months, she damn near lived in me, too." Clint smirks, that sly cowboy glint flashing just beneath the squint. "Meryl was the kind of woman who made self-control feel like the hardest stunt I ever pulled. And believe me, I've jumped from trains, been dragged by horses, had guns fired at my head. None of that compares to keeping my hands in my pockets when she leaned close." 2. Sandra Locke. Clint leans back, his expression tightening into something between a grin and a grimace. Sandra Locke, now there's a name that'll stir the dust. He shakes his head slowly, as if the memory is still tangled up in smoke. "We worked together on 6 pictures. 6. That kind of thing doesn't happen in this business unless there's fire burning both on and off the screen. And let me tell you, with Sandra, the fire was damn near uncontrollable. He pauses, the lines around his eyes deepening. On screen, she was a pistol, sharp, fearless, able to stare me down without blinking. Most folks don't realize how rare that is. Plenty of actresses could play vulnerable, plenty could play tough, but Sandra, she could switch between the two in a heartbeat. 1 second, she's melting in your arms, the next, she's cutting you down with a look. That's dangerous, because a man starts forgetting which part is the act. Clint lets out a low laugh, more rueful than amused. Working with her wasn't just acting, it was sparring. Half the time we were in character, half the time we weren't, and damned if I could always tell the difference. The chemistry was that thick, the kind that makes directors stop yelling cut because they know they're watching lightning strike. His voice drops, rougher now. But fire burns, everybody knows that. What people saw on screen was the spark. What they didn't see was the smoke, the fights, the aftermath. Hell, there were days on set where we'd argue like we were trying to tear the walls down, then step in front of the camera and make it look like we were the only two people in the world that mattered. That's the thing about Sandra. She could make you furious, and 5 minutes later, she could make you forget your own damn name. Clint shakes his head again, as though the weight of it all still lingers. I behaved, or I tried to, but with Sandra, it was never that simple. She was temptation and torment rolled into one. I'd tell myself to keep it professional, to draw the line, and then she'd walk on set, hair catching the light, eyes locked on me, and I'd feel that line snap clean in half. A flicker of a grin tugs at his mouth, that old cowboy mischief shining through. You don't work with a woman like Sandra Locke and walk away untouched. She wasn't just a co-star. She was a storm I walked straight into, knowing damn well it was going to tear me apart. And if I had the chance to go back, I'd probably walk into it again. 3. Shirley MacLaine.
Clint cracks a grin, shaking his head like he's replaying an old reel. Shirley MacLaine. Now there's a firecracker. We did 2 Mules for Sister Sarah together, and I'll tell you, she was unlike any woman I'd ever met. Smart as a whip, sharp tongue, and more sass packed into 5 feet of frame than most men could handle. He leans forward, elbows on his knees. On screen, she played this nun who wasn't exactly what she seemed. Off screen, same damn thing. 1 minute, she'd have you convinced she was all business, straight-faced and serious. The next, she'd be laughing so hard the crew couldn't get the camera steady. And Lord, when she laughed, it got under your skin. It wasn't polite or dainty. It was bold, like she dared you not to fall for her. Clint's eyes narrow, a sly gleam cutting through his squint. Working with Shirley was dangerous in a whole different way. She wasn't just beautiful, though. Hell, she was. She was unpredictable. You never knew if she was going to kiss you, slap you, or tell you about a past life she'd had in Egypt. And truth be told, any one of those sounded pretty damn good to me. He chuckles low, savoring the memory. Shirley had this way of keeping you on your heels. That's attractive as hell to a guy like me. A woman who doesn't just play the game, but rewrites the rules while you're standing there trying to catch up. She was trouble, but the kind you'd sign up for twice. 4. Jessica Walter. Clint's grin fades into something tighter, a little darker. Jessica Walter. Now that was a hell of a woman to work with. Play Misty for me was my first time directing, and she came in like a thunderbolt. Beautiful, intense, and just dangerous enough to keep everybody on edge. He pauses, squinting as if replaying the memories in his head. On screen, she played obsession better than anyone I've ever seen. That look in her eyes, it wasn't acting, not all of it. She had this way of staring straight through you, like she was peeling back the skin to see what you were hiding underneath. And off screen, she had a spark, too. Sharp, witty, the kind of woman who could cut you down with a line and then make you want to buy her a drink right after. It was confusing as hell, in the best way. Clint exhales, his voice lowering. There were moments I couldn't tell where Evelyn, her character, ended, and Jessica began. She'd flash that smile, sweet, dangerous, and I'd think, Lord, if she leans in any closer, I'm not walking out of this scene clean. She was temptation and chaos tied up in one package, beautiful, magnetic, and more than a little terrifying. And let me tell you, that's a damn hard combination to resist. 5. Donna Mills. Clint's tone softens, almost wistful. Donna Mills. Now she was a different kind of temptation. Blonde, fresh-faced, with that California glow. In Play Misty for Me, she didn't need to raise her voice or chew the scenery. She just had to walk into frame, and every head turned, mine included. He smirks under his mustache. She carried innocence on the surface, but you could tell there was steel underneath. The kind of woman who didn't need to chase attention because it followed her everywhere she went. You looked at Donna and thought, that's the kind of beauty that undoes you without even trying. And truth is, she almost did. He pauses, remembering. There was this one day on set, long hours, everybody tired, and she just walked by, humming some tune. Nothing fancy, just soft, under her breath. And I'll be damned if half the crew didn't stop what they were doing, just to listen. That's the kind of presence she had. Quiet, unassuming, but magnetic. And when those big eyes of hers landed on you, even for a second, you felt like you'd just been singled out, chosen. Clint chuckles low. She had that girl-next-door sweetness, but don't mistake it. There was danger in it, too. A woman like Donna, she didn't need to play games. She knew exactly the effect she had, and she carried it like a secret weapon. She'd smile at you, casual as anything, and suddenly you're wondering if you should take a step closer or 2 steps back before you lose your balance altogether. His grin widens, sly. I behaved, sure, always tried to, but Donna Mills was the kind of co-star who made behaving feel like the hardest work of the day. And if she'd ever leaned in just a little closer, well, let's just say we'd have needed a whole different ending for that movie. 6. Sophia Loren. Clint leans back, that famous squint softening with something close to awe. Sophia Loren. Lord, that woman wasn't just an actress. She was a force of nature. I never worked opposite her, and maybe that's for the best, because I don't know if I'd have kept my composure. She'd walk into a room and men forgot their names. Hell, I probably would have forgotten my own damn script. He chuckles low, like he's admitting to a sin long past. She had that Italian fire, that regal kind of beauty that didn't fade when the camera stopped rolling. It wasn't just the curves or the eyes, though. God knows those could bring a man to his knees. It was the way she carried herself, like she already knew every man in the room wanted her, and she didn't mind one bit. She thrived on it. Clint pauses, his jaw tightening, like he's picturing her across a crowded Hollywood party. I saw her a few times, just in passing, big premieres, functions, the usual Hollywood shuffle, and I'll tell you, you'd be surrounded by 100 people in tuxedos and gowns, but once she stepped in, the whole place disappeared. All you saw was Sophia. She had this laugh, low, rich, dangerous, that made you feel like she just let you in on the world's dirtiest secret. And the worst part, you wanted to hear it again. He lets out a slow breath, voice dipping lower. Sophia Loren was temptation dressed in silk. She didn't need to say a word, and you were already wondering what lines you'd be willing to cross. For me, I'll admit it plain. If she'd ever crooked her finger at me, cowboy hat or no cowboy hat, I'd have followed her right out the door. A grin flickers beneath his mustache, sly as ever. Some women you admire from a distance because you know it's safer. Sophia, she was the kind of woman you admired because you knew if you got too close, you might not come back the same. 8. Raquel Welch. Clint smirks, shaking his head with that gravelly chuckle. Raquel Welch. Now she was pure fire. All curves, all confidence, and not a man alive who didn't feel weak in the knees when she walked by. I never shared a screen with her, but I saw her around plenty. Hollywood parties, premieres. She didn't just enter a room, she claimed it. Men straightened their ties, women adjusted their dresses, because everybody knew they'd just been outshined. He leans forward, voice dropping low. Raquel was the kind of woman who made you forget whatever conversation you were having.
One look, and suddenly you're wondering how fast you can find an empty corner. She carried herself like she knew exactly the effect she had, and hell, she wasn't wrong. Clint lets out a slow, almost guilty laugh. She had that smirk, half invitation, half warning, and a man like me, I'd have taken it as both. Truth is, Raquel Welch was the kind of temptation you didn't need to catch to feel burned by. Just standing close to her was enough to make you forget your better judgment. He leans back, letting the grin linger under his mustache. Some women are meant to stay fantasies. Raquel Welch, she'll always be one of mine.